So today, John chapter 13. John chapter 13. Starting at verse 1. You be praying, I've lost my Bible. And it's the one that the church gave me when I graduated high school. I think I left it in Colorado and at the library. And so they're doing some checking and hopefully they find it. I thought maybe Candy took it and put it in her things to steal my notes out of it, but she said she doesn't have it. But you be praying that it turns up because it's special to me. But if it doesn't turn up, be praying that someone who needs it gets it. And that's fine too. I just hate to lose a Thompson chain because they don't print them anymore. But that's okay. Now, before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end. And supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he was come from God, and went to God, he rises from supper, laid aside his garments, and took a towel, and girded himself. After that, he poured water into a basin, and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel wherewith he was girded. Then cometh he to Simon Peter, and Peter saith unto him, Lord, dost thou wash my feet? Jesus answered and said unto him, What I do thou knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter. Peter saith unto him, Thou shalt never wash my feet. Jesus answered him, If I wash thee not, thou hast no part with me. Simon Peter saith unto him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Jesus saith unto him, He that washed needeth to save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit. And you are clean, but not all. For he knew who should betray him. Therefore said he, Ye are not all clean. So after he washed their feet, and had taken his garments, and was set down again, he said unto them, Know ye what I have done to you? You call me Master and Lord, and you say, Well, for I am. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither he that is sent greater than he that sent him. If you know these things, happy are you if you do them. I want to talk to you this morning and over the next couple of weeks about serving a higher purpose. Do you serve a higher purpose? Or do you serve yourself? I meant to bring a towel in this morning and lay it out on the altar, and I forgot. I was busy doing a lot of other things and forgot, and was going to lay it out on the altar. So use your imagination today. There's a towel on the altar, and the towel represents service. But you cannot have service for God until supper is ended. And it is significant to note here that Jesus did not gird himself with the towel until supper had ended. The feeding phase being ended, it should end in service, not in gluttony. The feeding is a place where God fills those that will burn off the fuel in service. He does not just feed you for your entertainment, your enjoyment, or even for your enrichment. He feeds those that serve. I didn't lose my place in my sermon. I wanted that to soak in. He feeds those that serve. He says, I give seed to the sower. I don't give seed to the collector. I don't give seed for decoration. I don't give seed so that you can have a feeling of security. He said, I give seed to people who are actively doing something with what I have given them. In other words, God says, I want to play catch with you. The more you throw out, the more I will throw back to you. I give seed to the sower, I give bread to the eater, I give it to you on the basis of your appetite. So Jesus was sitting with his disciples, and toward the end of his life on earth, everything he had done, everything he did had to count. Let me ask you, if you knew you only had a year to live, or a month to live, or a week to live, would you argue with people about foolishness? Would you worry about some of the things that you're worried about right now? What you would do is you would prioritize with the highest priority of the things that you were going to do with the time you had left. This is the final moments of the life of Jesus, and it seems strange to me that in the final moments of his life that he would wash feet. You know, in our final moments, in the end, towards the end of our life, we make a list called the bucket list. Any of you see that movie, The Bucket List, with Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson? Two guys that meet up in a hospital because they have cancer. And Morgan Freeman has this bucket list, this whole list of things that he wants to do before he leaves this world. And Jack Nicholson, who's very, very rich, says, we can do this. Now, they just met. They're perfect strangers. And they go taking off, going around the world, doing the bucket list. And they accomplish most of the list. I've heard many people say, I want to go to Hawaii. I want to go to Alaska. I want to meet so-and-so. It's on my bucket list. But I've never heard anybody say, I want to wash feet. Yet in the final moments of Christ's life, the thing he prioritized was getting down on the floor and washing someone's feet. That level of importance is mind-blowing. But you will never have it if you stay stuck at the dinner table. Coming to feed, coming to get what you can get, eating over and over and over again, never using any of the fuel that you get from the messages, just collecting it for your own entertainment and enrichment. You see, we should be burning off on Monday what we get on Sunday. We should be using it for some goal or some purpose or something that really matters, a higher purpose. And the Bible says that Jesus, after supper being ended, now Jesus didn't immediately gird himself with a towel. It says there in verse 2, and supper being ended, he rose, now verse 4, he rose from supper and laid aside his garments. Because you see, the second thing that I want you to understand is that you cannot serve God with your agenda still on. Until you are willing to lay aside your agenda and say, Lord, I am available to you, you won't be ready to serve in the robust way that you need to be able to serve. If you're taking notes, write this down. Selfish people don't serve. Selfish people don't serve. They don't serve the Lord. They don't serve their family. They don't serve their neighbors. They don't serve their generation. Because everything about selfish people centers around their own comfort, their own well-being. They want to be served. They want to get served. They will critique the way you serve them. They have high standards of what it requires to please them, but they never consider that they are to serve. And if Christ, who is the God we worship, served, then there is no position, no level of education, no level of income, no level of wealth, no age bracket, no level of anything else that exempts us from service. Why is that? We must understand that the getting of the acquisition of stuff does not make us happy. You can either learn this now or you can learn it later. But sooner or later you realize stuff is just stuff. And the more you collect of it, when you go through the battle and test, you would be shocked how little stuff helps you get through that. In a storm, when you really need somebody to be there for you, to stand by you, to comfort you, to build you up, you would be surprised how little stuff will aid you when the rubber meets the road. You would be surprised how little joy and fulfillment you get out of collecting stuff if you don't use it to give and to help and to encourage in some way. It is the weirdest thing. Some of the greatest, happiest moments of my life when I used money to help somebody else, or when I gave something to somebody else. What a joy it was to be able to go to Colorado, take the puppets, take the stage that we built, the trash can full of PVC pipe, show them how to set it up, and when we left, leave it. And then be excited about a puppet stage. Leave the sheets, leave the glue, leave all the extra pieces, leave everything but the puppets. Sorry, we brought the puppets home. Be willing to send all of the scripts I have on my disc for them to start a puppet ministry for themselves. We gave instruction to them while we were there. We gave of our time to give of our money, to give of ourselves. Yes, we received while we were there. Yes, we got. But there is greater joy when we give. When we blessed Christine, the missionary that is there. And when you read what she wrote, you will, oh my goodness. When we blessed the librarian, Tina, because we showed up. When we blessed the moms of the kids that were there that week. When we blessed the kids and listened to them and their needs. Their eyes lit up with someone just willing to take the time to listen. Just this week, I had a conversation with Christine through text. I told her that we were standing with her, that we would be back next year, that a team was already forming to go back next year, that we were praying for her and for her husband, Mike, that if there were specific needs that arose, please let us know so that we could be praying. And if we could meet them, that we would do our best. With an emphatic test, her response was, let me read it word for word. Thank you. This is an answer to prayer. Since the Shoemakers, who was a family in the area, retired, I have felt that I have been holding this ministry together by myself. And with the encouragement of my husband, now with all of you, Andrea and Helen and always Fern, I feel we can do more ministry with them. The tribe was so happy to have us as always. I told Tina, who is the librarian, we were operating on little or no money, and she said they were too. But we did it. Give, and it shall be given to you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. What a joy to give. To be in a position where you can help somebody else is a wonderful thing. I'm not talking about somebody who's greedy. I'm talking about somebody who's really in need. When you meet someone who has lost both parents, you meet someone who has lost everything because of suicide. You meet someone who has lost everything because of a tradition that where they removed all of the furniture in the house because someone died in their family. That's where some of those kids that came to the camp were from. They had nothing because of death in their family. They had nothing because of parents' choices. They were considered nothing. There were some that weren't even wanted, really in need and really in trouble and can't fix it for themselves. And it's within your power to do it. It's the greatest high in all of the world. To get back in your car, to realize that you've helped somebody over a hurdle in their life. It's a wonderful feeling. It's an amazing thing. It's an incredible thing to be able to do that. And Jesus is trying to equip His disciples. He's talking to His leadership. He's talking to His elders. He's talking to His people who have been arguing over dinner. Who have been arguing about who's going to sit on the right side and who's going to sit on the left side and who are going to be remembered when you get into the kingdom. Who's going to get this and who's going to get that. They had all kinds of debates about that. And Jesus didn't do anything. He didn't say anything. He just got up, laid aside His garment, and girded Himself with a towel and got down on the floor. Now, in biblical tradition, those that got down on the floor and washed feet did it when you first came in the house. Now, in this instance, I believe that nobody had washed the feet of anyone who had come into the house. I believe that. All right? So, everybody that was there eating the Last Supper were eating with dirty feet. In biblical times, the main mode of transportation was to walk. Imagine that. Walking to Colorado to minister. Driving 36 hours was bad enough. Some of us have trouble walking to the TV to change channels. We use those things called remotes. And if we can't find the remote, we're lost. They walked wearing sandals. And by the time you got to where you were going, your feet were clean. Your feet were dirty. And the washing of the feet was the way that a host washed away the sands that had collected from your journey. They were saying that being in my house is to be a refreshing experience for you. But no one had refreshed the disciples or Jesus in this instance. Nobody had honored them. Nobody had recognized them. Everybody was just sitting around. Because whenever a leader says, I'm getting ready to leave, everyone under him starts dividing up the turf. Who's going to get this and who's going to get that? It's just like going to a funeral. It almost tears families apart. You don't get Mama's watch. Mama meant for me to have that watch. It's that kind of spirit that's in the world today. Everybody wants to know, what am I going to get? What's coming my way? What's coming my direction? How are you going to establish me? Who's next in line? If you really want to wreck this church in 5 minutes, if you really want to excite the church in 5 minutes, Pastor Watts, we ought to preach something like, who's next? People will dance out of their shoes. They will mess up their hair. They will shout until the Lord comes back. Their clothes will be a mess because everyone wants to be next and get something. The reason that marriages don't last today, most of the marriage counseling that I do deals with the fact that the marriage is all about me. They want the marriage to be there for them. Because you see, when two selfish people get together, their marriage doesn't serve any purpose. And you quickly have a list of, you didn't do this, and you didn't do that, and you didn't take the trash out, and you didn't clean the kitchen, and you didn't clean the cat litter, and you didn't feed the dog, and you didn't kick the cat this morning, and you didn't wash the car, and you didn't water the yard, and you didn't pick the weeds, and you didn't wipe the kid's nose, and you didn't do the laundry, and you left the toilet seat up, and you didn't clean up the toothpaste in the sink, and you didn't pick up your nasty underwear after you took it off and dropped it in the middle of the floor. Because the focus is not on giving, the focus is on receiving. And a selfish daddy and a selfish mama will produce a selfish child. And everybody in the house will be fighting for turf because nobody has been taught how to serve. Gone are the days when we taught our kids how to serve and divided up responsibilities and said, it's your job to take out the trash and your job to wash the dishes and your job to put them away. When I was growing up, all sitting back there this morning, when I was growing up, there was a list on the fridge. One of us had to set for breakfast. That meant we had to get up early. Because breakfast had to be ready so that we could all sit down as a family and eat our prunes. Whatever else Dad put in front of us. But the table had to be set for all of us to sit down and have breakfast. And then we were off to school. And then for supper, one of us, a different one from the morning, one of us had to set, one had to clear, and one had to clean the dishes from dinner time. And then we rotated. And that's the way we served. Now, there were other responsibilities in the house, too. There were a lot of responsibilities in the house, especially when Dad decided to plant a garden. And then there were a lot of responsibilities in the house that we just thoroughly loved, going out and picking weeds and not picking the corn instead of the weeds and not picking the tomatoes instead of the weeds and all of those wonderful things. And then Mom decided to put in large flower beds and we had to pick the weeds and mulch, and it was lots of fun. But we're not training people to serve anymore because we're training people to eat. They grow up and they don't know how to do anything. Then they look at the things that need done and say, somebody ought to do that. They don't know how to do anything. They don't know how to do anything but eat. They don't know how to do anything but take. They don't know how to do anything but use. When life demands any kind of service, they feel like they're being abused and mistreated, and the world is turned against them because we've prepared them for a world that does not exist. People who train their children to serve will always have a job. It may not be the job you want, but you will always be able to eat. You will always be able to take care of yourself because you've been trained to serve. But people who have only been trained to take will be jobless real quick, because there aren't many jobs available for you to just come and get what you need. You have to lay aside your garment and humble yourself and prepare yourself to serve somebody. I'm telling you, you can't get rid of somebody who knows how to serve. They won't go away. They keep serving. They keep coming back and serving. They'll always have something to do. They'll make something to do. One of the greatest lessons that my grandmother taught me, I had just finished a job. I was working for my grandfather, and I was getting paid to work. I was getting paid a wonderful salary of $1.25 an hour. And I got paid that wonderful salary until I was a junior in high school, from 8th grade to a junior in high school. And Dad will tell you of a wonderful salary that he got when he was growing up too. And from his father, who was my grandfather, who I was working for. When I was a junior in high school, I proved myself to him, I guess, finally, and I got a raise. $2 an hour. And I got $2 an hour until I got married to my wife. And I loved overtime. But then he would take my overtime and split it into 2 jobs, so he never paid me overtime. Still got $2 an hour. My father, when he got a raise, he stopped getting paid. But yeah, right? Okay, so I'm not stretching the truth here. So Jay, see what you got to look forward to? Lessons, John. Lessons. Helping you out here. Okay? Teaching them how to serve. Helping you out here, John. Okay. One of the greatest lessons, though, that my grandmother taught me is that I was working at the house, working at the outside the house in the office there. His office was out of his house, and my grandmother was sitting in the office doing payroll, and I had just finished the job that my grandfather gave me. And I was still on the clock. I mean, I had just started the day, and I was to mow the grass in their yard, and it doesn't take long to mow the grass in their yard because they had a small yard. And I had finished it, and he wasn't back from running and doing the things he had to do, and he didn't leave me another job to do. He thought he would be back, and he didn't leave me another job to do. So I was sitting at the picnic table in their backyard drinking a glass of water, and I was waiting on him. And my grandmother came out of the office and sat down with me, and she asked me, "Rob, do you like your job?" She was so wise. "Do you like your job?" I responded, "Well, what kind of question is that? Of course I like my job. I like the money, $1.25 an hour. I love being here with both of you." I was living there. "I love working and learning from my grandfather," which I was learning quite a bit about construction. "I like learning from Uncle Jimmy, who was teaching me about concrete. I love being with the family on the job." She said, "If you want to impress your grandfather, if you want to move up in the ranks, if you want to do well in life, you first have to serve. And you have to keep serving. That means that when you're done the job that you were giving, look for another job. Weed the flower beds. Wash the car. Keep busy until the boss gets back. When he sees you working, he'll notice and be impressed with the little things that you do. Do you know that summer he had the cleanest car in the whole city of Newark? Little did I know that she was giving me a life lesson. But she was also giving me a spiritual lesson. I had to lay aside my agenda. I had to humble myself to do the things that maybe I didn't want to do because I don't like yard work. I didn't like it then, and I still don't like it today. But that didn't matter. Paid or not, I was called to serve. And when the master comes back, I want him to see me serving. You see, Jesus has gone away, and he's overseen a job. He's seen to it that my mansion is being built. He's seen to it that my home is being taken care of, so that when the time comes for me to cross over into glory, it'll be ready for me. When it's time for me to graduate from the harvest field up to the wedding feast, he'll find me in the field working, not at the table eating. There is a time to eat, but supper being ended, Jesus got up, laid aside his garment, and girded himself and got on the floor to serve. Church, supper is ended. Let's get on the floor and serve. Not just around this building and grounds, although there's places to serve here, but let's serve out into the fields that are white unto harvest. Because the master, the contractor, the architect, the one that we serve, our Savior, our Messiah, is overseeing the job. And he is overseeing the mansion that is being built for all believers. He's making sure that the home is ready for when we cross over. He's laid aside his garments, and he's serving right now so that we can enter into our rest. So that one day we'll stand before him and he'll say, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Enter into your rest." Oh, where will he find us when he comes? Will we be in the fields, or will we be at the table eating? We've come into this place to worship him. We've come into this place, some of us say we've come into this place to be refueled, to be regenerated, to be enriched, to learn. Well, okay, you're refueled. It's time to serve. If we don't burn it up and burn it out, then all we're doing is becoming gluttons. It's time to serve. Let's serve. Let's lay aside our agendas. Let's lay aside our garments and get on the floor. Let's stand together.